Hey everybody, I have something for you. I have a announcement of sorts. I want to introduce you today the first of a 12 episode series that's tied to our phase two Choose Recovery Services men's program slash groups. I wanted to create this to give you some clarity around the part of recovery that is might be not very well understood. Let's name what phase two work is. And phase two exists with the betraying partner and the betrayed partner, the partner in healing and the partner seeking recovery, individual seeking recovery. So phase two is often overlooked because many men believe that recovery should feel resolved or once that behavior stabilizes. And just want to acknowledge that many men stop acting out, but still feel emotionally confused, relationally disconnected, or unsure why repair isn't even happening. So let's clarify why this series exists. It's because Choose Recovery Services recognize that consistently there are men out there who are sober, who are but are still internally fragmented, and they're feeling really discouraged. So we just want to define phase two as like it's developmental. It's not corrective. It's not about fixing what's wrong, but it's about building emotional and relational capacities that were never fully formed. That work that was never done before. So we're going to frame phase two work as work focused on integration, and it's about meaning making, it's about grief, and it's about becoming someone internally, not just behaving differently. So I just want to set the expectation. This series is going to orient people to phase two. It does not replace the work itself. So I don't think you can just listen to these series and know exactly what you're getting phase two, but you'll get a glimpse of it. And then you can decide whether it's something that you need to engage in. That's a missing part of your work. Okay. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next 12 episodes. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Welcome to Beyond the Facade podcast. I'm your host, Luke Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you join me in this space today. What we're going to be doing is diving deep into the trials and triumphs and truths of seeking authenticity. Becoming your true self isn't about a single action or a moment. It's a relentless pursuit, a commitment to self that reveals the rich connection and meaning that our life has to offer. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a regular listener, know this: what you're building here goes beyond a conversation. You're here to challenge, to change, and to celebrate the incredible journey of becoming your authentic self. Because when you dare to show up fully, the rewards are immeasurable. So welcome to Beyond the Facade. Let's get started.
I just want to name the experience that I come across often and that we come across often that are in a group setting or around people that are overcoming compulsive behavior. Notice that people are genuinely trying in recovery, okay? And they still are feeling like something important is missing. And I just want to highlight the confusion of effort not leading to safety or closeness. Well, that was super confusing for some men. I'm sober. I'm not making that same behavior, but my life's not different. My world doesn't look different. That didn't create something necessarily where we came closer in our relationship. So what's that about? Okay, so let me give you the core concept. So this episode is going to focus on emotional maturity and why most people or most men or most betraying partners misunderstand what it actually is. I want to position this concept as it's foundational for understanding what stalled recovery is all about. Okay, so this episode is about emotional maturity is capacity, not behavior. Can I say that again? Emotional maturity is capacity, not behavior. So how most men define emotional maturity is often defined by outward behavior. Okay. So it would be defined as like I could stay calm. I'm following the rules. I'm not reacting strongly. I'm using the right language. So calmness is often confused with regulation. All right. And silence is often confused with like presence, being present with somebody. And compliance, this is my favorite one. Compliance is often confused with growth. So progress it's measured by what has stopped happening rather than what the person can now tolerate internally. I think that's like the biggest point today. So progress is often measured by what has stopped happening rather than what the person can now tolerate internally. So this creates this fragile sense of maturity that really collapses underneath relational stress. So you just want to notice like if ends up being so fragile, this state, internal state, that we end up collapsing, that's what we want to just notice. So let's talk about where that definition breaks down. So this definition fails when partners remain hurt despite behavior change. Okay. So often the men that I work with, they feel confused. They don't want to say this. Okay. And by the way, this is the next word. Okay. They feel confused, but they also feel resentful. Or ashamed. Whether like that effort doesn't like translate into repair. They're like, so much work. I'm doing so much work and still nothing's different. But those emotional reactions, they surface unexpectedly. They don't really know when they're going to pop up, or when they do, it looks like they're leading to defensiveness. Like it's explanation, it's withdrawing, it's shutting down, it's lashing out. And because those emotional reactions, they don't really know when they're going to happen or really what that reaction is about. So without that deeper framework, the men that I work with, are going to oscillate between like over efforting. Is that really a word? Over efforting? So men oscillate between that. Yeah, I'll just use it. Over efforting and disengaging. Okay. So there's just that extreme back and forth, like a lot of effort, and then I disengage because I just can't take it anymore. So that word capacity that I brought up earlier, what does capacity actually mean? Emotional capacity is awareness of your internal state, like in real time. Okay. So it's what is happening inside of me right now? What is going on? It's your ability to stay present within that side of that discomfort, because that's what it feels like. That shame, that grief. I can stay present with it. I'm not running from it. I'm learning it. And that's the word, tolerance for emotional pain, without collapsing or attacking yourself, giving yourself that internal beatdown of I need to do better. I need to try harder. And that capacity to hold conflicting emotions simultaneously. I think Alana does a beautiful job saying this, the power of the and. I have two things that exist at one time, conflicting emotions, ashamed and I'm angry. Just that it can be complex inside of us. And then what capacity actually means, we have the emotional capacity, which is what I just talked about. Then we have a relational capacity. Well, that's where we remaining emotionally available while another person is in distress. We can see them in that space and we're not trying to fix it. We're allowing our partner's experience without correcting or minimizing it. We're holding accountability without the need to reassure. And that's interesting that those things could exist in the same place. I'm accountable and I don't have to create reassurance for my partner. I can be with them in that experience. I'm holding myself accountable to where we're actually at right now. I'm participating in repair without rushing to closure, not needing to. I can sit with my partner and have no necessary closure in that experience. I can sit there and be in repair without needing her to get over it, to move on. So that relational capacity is the second part. Here's the third capacity that I want to talk about here for a second. Nervous system capacity. So that's recognizing activation early. I can sense it earlier rather than all of a sudden when I reflect back going, what just happened? It's staying present rather than defaulting to fight or flight or freeze or fawn. We'll talk about those often in group. What are those response modes? What is my typical go-to? And regulating internally instead of outsourcing regulation. Like I can do it inside of me. I don't need my partner to show up a certain way for me to be okay, or just frankly anybody else. That comes internally. That nervous system capacity increases. The other part of nervous system capacity is remaining like this word I often heard a lot, and I kind of didn't like it in the beginning, and I know the reason why now. It's remaining embodied rather than intellectualizing. So instead of being up in here, I'm in here. I'm in my body. I recognize what my body's experiencing. And instead of just trying to think my way through it. Okay. That's what capacity actually means. And we're going to talk about why sobriety doesn't create capacity. So interesting. So when I get sober, it doesn't mean I'm emotionally mature. Sobriety removes behavior, okay, but not the internal system that relied on them. Okay, so sobriety removes behavior, but not the internal system that relied on them. So I had a system that took place, a process And my lack of behavior doesn't change that system. So addictive behaviors often function as an emotional regulation tool. So when I remove my behavior, it exposes my emotional underdevelopment. And that's, guys, that's beautiful to notice. Like that's such a key part of recovery. When I remove that behavior, and this is why we call that stage in recovery shock, is because now I don't have my own behavior and now my body's freaking out, going like, wait, you don't have a coping mechanism now. So shock, I'm raw and I'm open to now what is reality. So when I remove that behavior, I expose that emotional underdevelopment. And that early sobriety can increase dysregulation and confusion. So just notice that like early sobriety often goes like, "Ah, I think things are getting worse. They're not getting better." Because sobriety opens the door and development must follow unless all behavior creeps back in. So that sobriety, like, here's the door, it opens. I got sobriety now. And now what can come in? Development can, because something has to exist when the old behavior's gone. And it has to be a new process. Okay. Let's just talk about here for a second our partners, the people that we hurt. And I want to give them a little bit because we don't have a lot of listeners that are partners. They're in healing, the betrayed partner. The relational translation here is low capacity often feels like it's fragile, and that looks like emotional absence to a partner. Okay. So just think about if you're the partner in healing or you think about your partner when you're low on emotional maturity, that shows up as emotional absence to your partner. And because partners are going to feel that pressure to manage that person's emotions or withhold certain information, like to really kind of be a caretaker of them. They feel that pressure. So we just want to recognize that effort alone doesn't register as safety. So if you're the partner in healing, I just want to speak to you. Just notice, just because my partner has effort, that doesn't register that I feel safe. It might at times, because that safety is communicated through that person being present and that person being able to regulate inside of themselves and not needing you to be okay. So think about it, like your partner shows up, they're regulated, they're present. That feels safe. And that's not because of all the effort they're putting in. That's not the work that they're showing you. That's how they're showing up. So that defensive explanations that they give you when they collapse into shame, that just increases the distance and the emotional that increases the distance or the emotional labor you have to put in for your partner. So I think just in this relational transition piece, I just want you to notice like when we have low emotional maturity, it comes across as emotional absence. Like my partner's not there. As we're talking about these 12 episodes throughout this next period of time. So the core concept here is emotional maturity is capacity and it's not behavior. So we're going to work on increasing our capacity or knowing what, at least what it exists and what it consists of. Capacity isn't going to be, it's not going to be rushed or it's not going to be forced, is why it takes so long. Okay. Is because we don't increase capacity all of a sudden. It's not something we can buy or purchase or borrow from somebody else. It's just, it grows inside of us. And that emotional development happens through repeated relational experiences, repeated exposure to those raw feelings. So frustration at this stage is common and it signals the need for deeper work. I want to just give this phase two invitation and just recognize phase two exists to build emotional, relational, and nervous system capacity. That works slow, right? And it happens relationally. It's experiential, it's practiced, it's understood through implementation. Okay. We just want to focus on internal organization, what's happening inside of me, integration, having my parts get to know each other and not hate each other. There's parts of us that we can't get rid of, the parts of us that we need to learn and know. So it's not about behavioral compliance. It's not about checking the boxes. So the aim here is to become someone that's safe by being present in your relationship, being present with yourself. And phase two is where that insight becomes a lived capacity, right? I'm excited for you to spend some time with you as we continue to go through these episodes. And we start off with what emotional capacity actually is and what it's not. So anyway, looking forward to the next few. As you go through this content, just recognize it exists inside of our men's groups, our phase two men's groups. And if you want to explore them, come spend some time with us and get to know more what it's about. I will share with you that as we build this out, and it's already built, it already exists, but as we build it out, it's meant to complement what the betraying partner is experiencing in a group setting in their work. So y'all can talk about this. So they're aligning. But anyway, appreciate you spending time with me. Looking forward to the next one.
If you're a man who's trying to show up differently for your partner after betrayal, then listen closely. The Help Her Heal Intensive is a 4-day immersive experience built for men who are ready to take responsibility, build emotional skill, and become safer partners. This isn't talk therapy, it's hands-on training in how to regulate, listen, and respond without getting defensive when things get hard at home. You'll work alongside other men who are also serious about change in a focused, confidential setting, so you're not trying to figure this out alone. My name is Hallie Roderick, and I'm both a professional and someone who's lived through betrayal recovery. Our team is here to give you the structure, the tools, and the feedback you need to show up with consistency and integrity in a way that supports real safety for your wife. You'll leave with a clear plan for how to act differently, communicate better, and continue rebuilding trust when you go home. Check out the show notes for more information or how to register. If you're serious about helping her heal, this is where you start.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. If this is something that you connected with, I'd love to meet with you more and talk about it. So what you can do is go to chooserecoveryservices.com or check the show notes. And there what we can do is set up a quick conversation to meet. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Facade, where we unmask the authentic self.